G'day viewers, grab a cuppa. It's time to learn how to drive the 700. We're going to do, this is the first of 3 tutorials I'm doing. This one will be how you get the train when you pop into a service. So first thing we need to do is get in. Most of the time when you pop into a service or scenario, you'll already be in the chair, but I hopped out just for demonstration purposes. Let's get this door closed. And we're going to, as usual with every chain, sit in the chair first to take possession of it. Next up, master key. Turn that on. You can get your reverser into forwards. I'm using the rail driver, but you can use your controller or keyboard, whatever you like. We'll put our headlights onto exterior daylight. If you need windscreen wiper, that control is over here. I won't be covering the power changeover in this particular train because I'll do that in a separate tutorial. There's a little bit to it. And I'm going to turn on some safety systems. First up is AWS TPWS, which is the Automatic Train Protection and Warning System. It basically stops you if you fail to acknowledge signals, and it's beeping away now. We also have Vigilance, which I'm turning on, and DSD, which I'm turning on. I'll explain both of those in just a moment. First thing I have to do is acknowledge all of these alarms that are going off.
US and AWS operational.
That's good to know. That's not the only thing that talks, though. The other thing that talks is the DRA. So if you pop that on, so whenever you come up to a red signal, particularly coming into a station, you pop on the red DRA to remind you to not drive, and it actually won't let you drive if you've got this on. When you turn it off...
Driver, you have reset the DRA. Please check the signal.
It's green. Yay. Alright then. Now, the other safety systems I turned on, AWS TPWS, you have to acknowledge speed changes downwards, and you have to acknowledge adverse signals. That happens when there's a magnet. If there's no magnet, there's nothing to acknowledge. So when the sunflower lights up and you hear the doo, you've got to acknowledge it, and you only get 2.7 seconds, which is prototypical. Otherwise, it'll stop the train. We will go through how to restart your train when that happens. There's a little bit to it. The other one is the vigilance control. There it goes. That's the vigilance going off now, right on cue. I'll acknowledge that. It's Q key or circle on PlayStation, B on Xbox. That one, just make sure you're awake and you're behaving, because this is a driver-only train, so vigilance is important. The other safety system I turned on is the DSD. So if I was to stand up and the train was running, it would apply the brakes and stop. And that's the driver's safety device. So it just means you have to stay in the chair. Alright, that's about all you actually have to really turn on with this one. You can, if you wish, you can adjust your blinds as suits you if you want to. You can open windows if you want to. You normally may do that to get a better feeling of the exterior sound of the train. In this one I don't do that because, to be honest with you, it sounds like a car alarm. So let's get our doors open and get our people in. Let's just pop out and watch them getting in. Probably would have helped if I did that before, because now, of course, we're late. Now I'm running this on Southeastern High Speed, which is its home route in the game. They can run on British Mainline, BML, but they're not programmed into that one at this stage because its timetable's just a little bit full. Door open and closing is as per usual. There is no guard mode on this train because it's a driver-only train. Now, I used the keys on the keyboard for that, but you can use the buttons if you want to. There's the doors release and the doors close. That was our vigilance going off again. Alright, so there's our little horn. And this one's got a master controller, so I'm in the off position. It moved a bit then because I was on rail driver. And you can move that all the way up to full service braking. And you can't go wrong and put it into an emergency on this one with the rail driver, which is a nice feature. It makes me very happy. So if you want emergency brake, whack the mushroom or backspace on PC. So let's take some power, and you'll notice that the brakes are on over here. So it's the only real gauge is the air brake. So if I start taking some power, the train automatically releases the brakes, which is a hill start feature, and the car alarm goes off. No, honestly, it's the sound this train makes. That's why I didn't open the window, because listen. Oh, it's louder. Such an annoying noise. Just while we're getting moving, we do also have display. There's a few things you can do in here, like turn on your own air conditioning if you want to. You can change the brightness of the display if you need to. And there's a few other bits and pieces you can play with. See some of that in the power changeover tutorial. Alright, let's go up to full power now. Now this train has automatic braking basically. It's electro-pneumatic and air braking. It does the blend all by itself. You don't have to. You just use the master controller and go, I want to stop now. Its brakes are quite good, quite strong, quite abrupt you might even say. Now next time vigilance goes off on the way to Gillingham, I'm not going to acknowledge it because I want it to stop me so I can show you how to reset it. You don't have to let it stop you completely either. It's a simple enough process, and the same with DSD is the same reset procedure, so I won't repeat it. We'll just do it for this one. Oh, excellent. We've got a yellow signal coming up. Fantastic. I won't acknowledge this yellow signal because it'll give me a chance to show you the... There's the vigilance. So I'm not going to acknowledge the vigilance, and it'll start stopping the train. There we go. So I acknowledge it, power off, and off we go again. Now you notice we've also got a TPWS which is now stopping us. Now we got the TPWS for the 60 zone. So I'll just let this stop, put the power and brake controller, it'll stop you anyway, but just put it into full service and leave it there. You can acknowledge the alarm, and now you wait. And there's no cheating way around this one. Maybe there is, but let's show you the right way. I actually think in this one there isn't a cheating way around it. If I remember correctly, if you turn the train off and on again, it actually remembers. So what it wants you to do is contact the signaller, but that's only the train thing. You don't actually do that. If you ever do need to contact the signaller, by the way, it's the SG button on the GSMR. There we go. Now we've got a BR turned up there, so we can actually press the BR, and guess what? We can release the brakes with the master controller and take power again. So you do have to wait for that BR to turn up. Alright, that was able to show you that one. That's good. Hopefully that wasn't confusing with the vigilance going off at the same time as AWS then, but I acknowledged the vigilance first, and then we got the AWS that I needed to acknowledge for the 60 zone, but I deliberately didn't. And that stopped the train. So on our way to Gillingham again. It's a bit of a run there. Now what about if you need to stop in a hurry? Well, on this train you could just put it in full service, but if you whack the emergency stop, you get full air brake straight away. It's not electro-pneumatic when the emergency stop, it just stops. Put your master brake controller back into full service. And to get going again, release the mushroom, release the brakes, and then you can take some power. And off you go. So it's a nice simple one. It's only the acknowledgement of the AWS, and when you get a train protection stop, that it's a little more complex, as you saw. But even then it's not complex really, you just have to wait for the timeout. Now that timeout varies. If you acknowledge, you don't need to acknowledge that because it's a green. If you acknowledge the AWS quickly, your timeout's quite short. If you acknowledge the AWS slowly, it makes your timeout longer. So as we're now driving along in the reduced length unit with 8 cars. It's basically an 8-car long car alarm. I'm sure you recognise the similarity in the sound. Got an AWS that I'm acknowledging, and we have to slow for 50 coming up, but we've also got a station coming up fairly soon, because we're now coming past the yard at Gillingham. We just went past the washer. We're about to come through Gillingham level crossing. I've put on a tiny amount of brake. Bit of horniness for the crossing. You notice that tiny amount of brake's not really having much effect at all. In fact, we're coming into a platform now, so perhaps we might want to give it some more. Now you'll notice I came into this platform, I was doing what, 41 miles an hour? And it's going to effortlessly stop. In fact, I'm actually going to have to release the brakes, or I'm going to stop early. So it's quite a good stopper. It's even quite a good stopper in the wet and in the snow. It's not quite as good, but it's still pretty good. Stopped a little bit early there, but that's okay. So that's a normal stop. And I didn't explain it while I was stopping, but you may have noticed that the air brakes only came on right at the end. It was using the electro-pneumatic braking through most of that process. What else do we need to do? We've been through all of the things I normally do in tutorials, except for shutting down to change ends. So I know we're not supposed to change ends at this station, but we're going to do it. So if it's a terminating station, you can leave the doors open, otherwise you would close them. But basically what you have to do now is put on your tail lights, set your reverser to neutral, set your power and brake to full service, turn on the DRA, or set it, however you like to say it, and rip out the master key. Oops, one more, you've got to deregister the GSMR. I've got to remember how to do this now. So press the off button and press the confirm button. There we go, that's done. Now with this particular train, it actually functions fine if you leave these turned on, but just as a force of habit thing with trains in this game, I always turn off the safety systems at the end that I'm leaving. So let's just pop back in the chair now, do the last thing, which is pull the master key out, and that shuts everything down. And then we can just climb out through our door here, and we'll confuse the game no end by going up the other end and starting it up. Because the game's not really expecting me to do this here, it wants me to keep going. You can see it's rather a long train, so even though it's a reduced length unit, it's still rather long. Just remember that with your shorter platforms. Let's hop in here, sit down, and now we basically do the same process that we did before. So we'll sit in the seat, we'll turn on the master key, jump up, we'll turn on our safety systems, TPWS, vigilance and DSD, and we'll acknowledge those.
TPWS and AWS operational.
Thank you, lady. Put it into forwards, set our headlights to day head or night head as appropriate, and we can lock our passenger doors. Now I know I've got a red signal in front of me, so I'm not going to go very far, but I just want to show you that we can now release the brakes and drive off. And away we go. So clearly I'm not going to drive through a red signal because I don't want a spad. Now, if you were shutting down in a yard, the only difference from that sequence, it's not much difference at all. Put it back into neutral, put it back to tail lights because you leave it with the tail lights, deregister your GSMR again, Same deal with the safety systems. Turn on anything that you turned on. Did I say turn on anything that you turned on then? I'm not sure. I meant turn off. Pull your blinds down, because you always pull your blinds down when you're leaving the train. And get the master key out. Hop yourself out of the train. It opens. And you're done. That's how you would leave it if you were parking it up in a yard. Alrighty. Thanks very much for watching. If you've got any questions on the 700, let me know down below and I'll try and help you out. It's relatively easy to drive. The only gotcha is the AWS TPWS braking, and you have to wait for that timeout and wait for BR to appear. Apart from that, it's pretty straightforward to drive. It's quite an enjoyable one. I find the sound a little bit annoying, but it's a prototypical sound. It is the way it sounds, but personal tastes. So that's about it for this one. I will do a AC/DC changeover. I'll pop it over onto a different place so where we can do that. Here goes a big blue thing. See you later, Javelin. And I'll also do a cold and dark startup as well. Alrighty, have fun, folks. I hope this has been useful for you. And if you like it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for lots more of similar stuff. Alrighty then, see you later. Bye.